Hello there, my name is Placeholder, and welcome to a little bit of a video that's talking about LEGO 2K, but it's not actually in LEGO 2K for once. Who'd have thought? So today we're going to do a bit of a tier ranking of the different race courses in the game. Before I get in fully into it, I do want to say that there are the main things I hate about most of these courses are the fact that there are water elements and also just hazard elements that just blow you up for almost no reason in the game. Aside from all that, there are very basic and very small race courses, but we're gonna go based off of overall enjoyability and also just replayability in a sense, especially when you're grinding for the tiers and also the drive pass in the actual online lobbies. So without further ado, we're gonna get started. First one, obviously, is gonna be Racing 101. It's gonna be this guy. This guy is a solid C. They're right in the middle. They're not quite amazing. They're decent. They have elements of all three: off-roading, street racing, and water elements. It's just that it's not overly exciting per se. Like it's cool. It's the first race you do. It gets you into it. However, it's just not overall that exciting, especially when you play it in online lobbies. All right, so the next one after Racing 101 would have to be just going off a site here. We're gonna go Down on the Farm. I believe that's the first one that you race in Perspective Valley. It's fairly simplistic. Again, after the last few races of in Big Butte rather, it kind of helps reground you, kind of brings you back to kind of OG. Also, it's very enjoyable for the most part in online lobbies, except for when people exploit the uh, shortcuts. The shortcuts are fun. There's only like two of them. They're pretty small, especially since the map is pretty small and it just follows a simple oval shape. It's it's pretty neat. I do also like it because especially it's very it's hard to explain. Basically, I like the fact that it's very simple. It's very simple, similar to Butte Loops, but it's not as restricted. You can actually go off course a little bit more than just being restricted to the course. Now, the next one, like I did just mention, Butte Loops is good. I like it. It's in B tier for a reason. It is purely street race, similar to how Down the Farm is purely off road. Which it would be really interesting to see a more pure water course. They don't really have any of those, which is kind of unfortunate. But anyway, back to Butte Loops. Butte Loops, fairly straightforward. Again, more of an oval shape, very locked in, classic street race style. It's hard to go off course, and it's very interesting. The only thing I'll say is that it does get frustrating when you're in online lobbies and you do get hit with a rocket or a mine. Ends up flipping you over, maybe even resetting you entirely. And then you have to work against the clock essentially and have to get back an entire lapse time just to pass the person who may or may not have hit you. So it does get frustrating, but it's still a classic, fun map. All right, and then the very first one in what's the word I'm looking for? Hansborough. It's a little less as good as Racing 101. It's a pretty straightforward ish. It's got more of a figure eight shape to it. The only main reason I dislike it is how many hazards are on this particular one. We got spiders dangling above you. We got the spider web element just about everywhere, especially through one major section right before you get to the finish line. That just kind of, it's interesting, but the fact that it can happen easily and just immediately throw everybody and anybody off course is kind of one of the most frustrating things about it. That's kind of the only reason I'll give it a low C, is just because of how frustrating it can be to play that one particular. Because there's oil slicks, there's spiders coming from the sky. It's not overall that great, and it's also just kind of annoying because instead of having to focus on the racing, you're focusing on stuff that's on the field. It's not that good. And then let's see, next. Yeah, why not? Infinite Loops. Where would I put that one? I don't want to say, I'm going to say high B because I don't necessarily want to say A yet. Good classic figure eight, nice little off road and derby. It's just, it gets kind of old. I would honestly say it should probably have more laps to it. A lot of these races that are actual circuit style should have more laps and also should just be longer in general to make it more interesting. I get what they were doing. They weren't necessarily trying to make bigger maps or bigger race courses, try and make it be like 10-minute long races. So I do admire that, except for I just would like to see some of these maps be a little bit longer. Especially since Infinite Loop, there's also again hazards for no reason. When yeah, you can avoid them for the most part, but it does depends on if you're faster than everyone else, you just don't trigger them, but then you trigger them for everyone else, and then it just kind of ends up being a pile up. All right, who we got next? Headless. Yeah, it's Headless. Whatever the fuck the other name is. Yeah, first D tier. Not the hottest one in the box. It's interesting, except for the fact that it can't really make up its mind if it wants to be solely a water course or if it wants to be an off-road or if it wants to be street. Because it has less street element than it does everything else. So it's honestly kind of a weird toss-up. Also, I just don't like how some of the shortcuts aren't really well designed per se. Like they're pretty obvious, but in order for you to hit most of them, you have to like be almost perfectly precise. Otherwise, you get stuck, and then there's no point in using the shortcut anymore because everyone else has passed you by that point. So, just moving on from that one, what we got? We got Swampus. Honestly, I am glad that Swampus is mostly water based, so I will give it some credit where credit's due. I will say it's higher than Racing 101, except for the fact that they don't really balance the water elements. For a lot of the times they get like boost or to just help, in general, the water isn't that good. So the fact that you made 50% of your course all water, and also water with a shit ton of crocodiles in it, and almost no way to help gain boost, it's not that very useful overall. It's still a little bit more interesting than Racing 101, but honestly, it's actually frustrating. Actually, you know what? We're gonna switch those out because honestly, it's better than Spider Hollow, but it's not as good as Racing 101. More interesting, but it's not as good. And then high stakes. All right, we got the first point A to point B. Let's see. High stakes. I really, honestly, A tier. Only thing that's a drawback. Again, I'm gonna probably say this 1,000 times. Water element. What the fuck are you guys doing with the water elements? Honestly, the most frustrating part because unless you save your boost and use it during the water, you're kind of just screwed. You lose all your momentum after going downhill in a really cool aesthetic area that just really cool vibe. I love Hansboro's whole vibe. It's just not that fun to go from that to then water and you're almost going like 0 miles an hour. But it's still A tier, just regardless of the water. Immortal Coil. It's higher. It's higher than Headless horsepower, mainly because I do like the twists and turns for the most part. It's just that again, if it wasn't for the fact that it was so short, all these maps, all these courses are so short that it just almost doesn't feel worth it, if that makes any kind of sense. It's very interesting. I do also like that it's the hazard is more or less a stun mechanic, but obviously they do still have I think they have a few spots where they drop mines, so it's not overall that crazy. Also, their shortcuts aren't that good. You really need to be specifically equipped and ready for those shortcuts. They don't really have to happen to work. The course doesn't really funnel you towards those shortcuts, so that's kind of the reason it's a D tier. All right, we got Dust Devil Run. Yeah, I'm gonna say low A, simply because I do love the fact that it actually incorporates very very unique um hazard. It has actual twisters. Why not? That's actually really cool. I like the twisters. I don't quite like the small portion of water element to it, but I love the off-roadness to it. Again, very short, but I do like the Dust Devil. It adds more of a interesting dodging challenge, if I can say that, as opposed to some of the other ones, and also it just looks cool. All right, Dust Devils in the middle of a map, very cool, as opposed to just like, electric coils and random ship that drops mines on you. Moving on from Dust Devil, what do we got next? We have, yeah, let's go Vessel Run. Vessel Run, hmm. That, we'll say low C. I need to stop saying the word interesting, but um, it plays a good job. It does a very good job of incorporating all three elements. Kind of like Racing 101 of how racing is. We got the water element, got the off road, got the street racing. The only thing I'll say, again, just kind of like the other ones with the water race, with the water elements, you need to fix it. That's the only like especially when it's literally the last leg of only a 2-lap course, which it should have more laps for number one. But also the last leg with just water really screws people over, myself and other racers included. That's kind of the only reason I have it as a low C right now. Right now we got 26 courses, so I'm sure they're going to change as we go. All right, we got Drive Through Derby. Nope, yep, there we go. High A, and you know why? Because it is very classic. It's got two main sections of off-road and also street racing. It's definitely one of the more, I wouldn't say necessarily unique per se, but I also loved racing against the more food-themed vehicles. I loved Fernando Suerve. He's honestly one of my favorite characters in the game, solely just because of the fact that he drives a very gentrified vehicle, but it's very cool. I like the taco element to it, but also just the actual course itself, fairly straightforward. Yes, it is just a classic circle, and it also, I believe, is one of the first ones that has longer than like 3 or 4 laps rather. I think it has 4 or 5. I think 5. Can't recall off the top of my head. Butte Loops is like 7. I think a 7 in A class, C class, I think it's like 5. I forget what it is. But at least Butte Loops makes sense because it's such a smaller intro course. Moving on from Drive Through Derby, who we got next? Is this? Yep, this is Flytrap. Why? Fucking why? Make up your mind. Do you want larva that explodes? Do you want fly swatters? The fly swatters are interesting, but I would rather have had just fly swatters instead of every other thing. You have electrical hazards, you got explosive hazards, and you got just physical hazards. Why? Why on God's green earth did you invent this particular level? Honestly, one of the least favorite. Because it's just, you go from gaining traction, and then if you're lucky to go around one particular turn, cool, you made it. But the rest of the 90% of the level is just water. And honestly, it would have been kind of better if they just did all water. And sure, get rid of maybe the electrical trap and then just have the fly swatters and the exploding larva. Whatever. Cool. Or get rid of the exploding larva and include the fly swatters and the electrical bug zapper. Because those make sense. Alright? Switch back and forth. Yeah, we're going D. Because actually, it's more interesting than the two other previous two. Except for the fact that they just have to have random bullshit in the fucking cars. If it wasn't for that, I would fucking love it. It's so interesting because who doesn't want to race basically up and down a mountainside and into a mine tunnel? Honestly, really cool. Pretty interesting, but then just why on the last leg do you have to incorporate hazards and also lack thereof of any type of like way to maintain boost, especially when you have boost being your main form of drive in this game. Clover Mines, we got right up there in A class. absolute jam. I mean, it's definitely one of the best like Tokyo Drift ones out there. If you hit that drift in the right spot, you can pretty much go around just about every turn without breaking off your drift rather. Honestly, one of the coolest and more high paced. Again, would love to see if it had like 10 laps, whatever, just to make it more interesting for more endurance related. And then let's see, this one's Airway Roundabout. It's interesting, except for a couple spots that are just kind of like, why, huh? Like it's just they're just kind of there. It's not that much really to talk about. It's a very straightforward map course, rather. It's just nothing much interesting. There's a few cool turns. Kind of an again useless hazard, especially since it's on a hazard that's on a jump ramp. Why is it there? Glazed Overdrive. You should know why. Because mainly because of the fact that again water elements. Why does it have to be RNGesus as fucking much as possible with water? Don't understand. But with Glazed Overdrive, I mean it's unique ish, I guess. Except for the fact that the donuts that come out of the sky either blow you up or just straight up wreck your entire drive course, which I'll be honest is not very fun, especially when you're trying to actually win the goddamn race. So enough said on that one. This one's Rapid Falls or Rapid whatever, I can't remember. I'm gonna have to go with just underneath of Switch Back and Forth. I like it per se. Like it kind of just kind of like Flytrap. It does incorporate those axes that chop up and downward. Very interesting. But again, it's that water element and the fact that they also have to have. Do they have mines? Yeah, they got mines there. Mines that just have to be there for no reason, and also just the water element is interesting, but overall doesn't really help. And then like the two shortcuts they have really don't fucking help. But overall, it's not quite a Y. It's still a D tier. And then Abduction 500. Also kind of a Y. Like it's cool because I like the more Men in Black and Alien references in the game in it with the different AI that you race against and in online lobbies. It's just a like a really haphazard feeling to it. And there's only like two or three like decent straightaways to it. I don't know how to really explain it. It's just not it's almost supposed to be Glazed Overdrive, but Glazed Overdrive is slightly better than that one. If that makes any logical sense. And yeah, the UFO hazards are interesting, but it's like they don't do anything. So why? Again, just why? What else can we talk about? We got the Big Butte Arena. What is this one? This one is Minecart. Yeah, we're gonna go low A because I like everything about Big Butte Arena except for the water course, the water part of the course. Just like every other race course in this goddamn tier list. Why does there have to be water in my in my race course? Sorry. No, it reincorporates just about everything that you have probably come to love about Big Butte. It's got the mine shaft to it. It's got the more off-roading aspect to it. It's just more uniqueness as opposed to just the other ones. Actually, my bad. That's not Big Butte. That's Prospecto Valley. Hang on. Back to this one. So yeah, Big Butte Arena, it just kind of has a bit of everything. It has a bit of aliens, but has a bit of water. And actually, even though the water element is the very beginning slash end leg of the course, it's not as cancerous per se as any of the other ones. So actually, I'll put it just a little higher than the Dust Devil Derby. All right, simply because of that, because it's very interesting. It kind of brings into the whole kind of desert aspect to it. And then now, kind of like what I already just said, since we're here talking about it, Perspective Valley, boom, low A because of the kind of same reasons. Very interesting. And then if I recall that one, the water element there, yeah, that's the one that's very much very at the beginning, very at the end. It's fine, except for the fact that it's just the water element. That's the only thing I gotta say. But it's fun. Still got that minecart element to it, and it's also just kind of brings back the kind of country vibes to it. Next up, we got Hauntsboro. Hauntsboro, it's got to be pretty high A, just simply because of the fact that it's the best vibe in the entire game. Who doesn't like castles? Who doesn't like, spooky themes? I love that shit. And honestly, all of Hauntsboro, love it. Except for all the side quests I had to do in Hauntsboro. Those were dumb. Anyway, moving on from that, we're just going to leave that one there, because enough said on that. We're going to go Sky Cup Grand Prix. Fucking why? Alright? Just why? Because, just why? Like, I like the fact that it's in the sky and it's more futuristic, whatever, cool. It's not. It wasn't as end game level type of a course that I was expecting. I didn't think I was gonna beat it first try, for one thing. I thought it was gonna be hard as hell, but it wasn't. All right, pretty straightforward. The other reasons I'll say is because like they did try to incorporate everything, but the water element, everything exists in two spots. There's two different little chunks of each element. The water element, both times, stupid and almost unavoidable. It's like, why? And the fact that it's more platformy is kind of neat. So that's the only reason I would love to give it some credit, but it's not better than Abduction 500. I'm sorry. So that's the only thing I'm gonna say about that. Because no, thank you. It wasn't that fun overall. Gold Rush. Are we surprised? It's S tier. Why? Okay, well, only reason I'll say it's gonna be kind of low S tier is because it's very short, but it's fairly fun. It's just pretty straightforward, nice and simple. Just classic little off-road oval shape. Which, yeah, you're probably wondering why don't I have Down the Farm higher tier? Because Down the Farm has dumb shortcuts that help, but also are just, why do you need shortcuts in that type of a race? Gold Rush doesn't have a shortcut. Zero shortcuts. It's just pure, unadulterated skill about going around the two main corners that you have in that and just bypassing people. Alright, pretty straightforward. Love it to death. Pretty much always a guaranteed victory whenever I race on it. Next up, Cat Scratch Freeway. Only thing I dislike about it is the water element. I know, shocker there. Real surprise. No, because it honestly isn't necessary, and I do love the fact that it's more street race. Despite the fact that you're in Prospecto Valley, and Prospecto Valley has like almost no street race up to that point, except for what was it? The Clover Loop or whatever the fuck it was called, Clover Mines. And then you go to Cat Scratch Freeway where you're like, oh, it's probably off road. Nope, it's pretty fun. Only thing I'll also say about it is just like why the balls of yarn. Like, and also why do some of them blow you up? Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. Just really kind of frustrating. But overall, even regardless of that, still more fun than the rest of them. And now that we're standing here for a second, I'm gonna reevaluate We're gonna bring that one. We're gonna bring Drive Through Derby up to S tier because it's just fun. And then Clover Mines. Oh, it's hard to. Yeah, we're gonna put Clover Mines above Huntsville Grand Vic Arena. Now then, that is all of the race courses that I have. Y'all can agree with it. Y'all can hate on my selection. Couldn't honestly care, if I'll be honest. This is from me grinding and driving and racing in the story mode by myself and also with other players of different skill levels. This is just what I feel overall from favoritism slash playability. And maybe a lot of y'all agree with me. That's cool. That's amazing. Love that. However, that's just my personal opinion. I'm sure you guys all have your own opinions. It's still a very busted game online. Still need to fix some lag elements to it. I'm really pushing for LEGO 2K to be better. Hopefully they will. Anyway, that is all the time I have for this particular little video. As always, my name is Placeholder. Signing off.